Welcome back to Anime What If Saga, where every shadow hides a story untold. In a world ripped apart by chaos and monsters, a leader's true strength lies not in power, but in unwavering resolve. This is the story of Go Gun-Hee, the chairman who stood as humanity's shield in its darkest hour. Welcome to Chapter 1, The Burden of a Legendary Chairman. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for epic solo-leveling storytelling. In the quietude of a sunlit room perched atop the towering Hunter Association building, Go Gun-Hee sat motionless before the grand window, his lined face traced with the marks of time. 1,000 responsibilities weighed upon his shoulders: the safety of humanity, the fates of millions of hunters, the trembling balance between worlds. Yet his eyes, sharp and reflective, carried the calm of a man who had borne such burdens for decades. Long before the rise of dungeons and shadow armies, Go Gun-Hee's life was shaped by the ravages of a nation recovering from war and loss. Born into a world of hardship, his youth was woven from unyielding discipline and the relentless pursuit of order amid chaos. The Korean peninsula bore scars his generation knew intimately: ruined cities, displaced families, and lingering shadows of conflict. From early adulthood, Gun-Hee found himself drawn to the military, where his leadership prowess flourished amidst harsh training grounds and battlefields. His ascent was neither swift nor unchallenged; it was earned through sacrifice and unwavering commitment. Brothers in arms fell beside him, forging his understanding of the ultimate cost of command. When the Hunter Gates erupted into existence, a new reality shattered the world's fragile peace. Monsters unlike any in human history poured through mysterious portals, leaving devastation in their wake. Governments struggled, armies faltered, only heroes called hunters rose to challenge the unknown. It was within this crucible that Go Gun-Hee's true destiny emerged. Selected to lead the fledgling Hunter Association, he faced a daunting challenge: to unite disparate factions rife with mistrust, to establish order in chaos, and to guide humanity's last line of defense. Each decision chipped away at his youth, replaced by solemn wisdom earned only by shouldering an unthinkable burden. Meetings stretched into cold nights. Reports of hunter casualties arrived like a tide of sorrow. Political pressure mounted from every direction: rival guilds vying for dominance, governments demanding results, and unseen forces whispering threats beyond comprehension. Yet, Gun-Hee remained steadfast. His voice, the embodiment of steadfast resolve, rippled through council chambers filled with uncertainty. In moments of solitude, he reflected on the hunters he guided. Each reminded him of his younger self, strong, hopeful, yet fragile. Among them was the boy named Sung Jinwoo, who walked a path fraught with danger and destiny. Gun-Hee saw in him the future and feared the price it would cost. The burden of leadership was never lifted. Gun-Hee's body bore the weight of untold battles, his heart carried the weight of every fallen hunter. He understood that power was more than influence; it was sacrifice, loneliness, and the relentless pursuit of hope. As dawn painted the sky with hues of gold, Go Gun-Hee rose from his chair. The battlefield had shifted from dungeons to diplomacy, from monsters to men. Without hesitation, he steeled himself for the challenges looming on the horizon. "Our fight is far from over," he whispered to the empty room. "But we stand as the shield, no matter the cost." The dawn of a new era came quietly, yet for Go Gun-Hee, it was anything but peaceful. The air hummed with tension as the last embers of global conflict cooled, only to make way for a battle of a different kind, a war waged not solely with guns and soldiers, but with monsters and magics born of otherworldly gates. Gun-Hee's path had been carved through decades of combat and diplomacy. Clad in his uniform, the captain during his military years, he had long understood that the fiercest enemies were never those facing his men on the battlefield, but the uncertainties lurking just beyond sight: betrayal, despair, and overwhelming odds. His rise through the ranks was neither easy nor guaranteed. Each promotion was hard-fought, a testament to his strategic mind and unyielding ethics. Unlike many, Gun-Hee saw soldiers not as expendable assets but as brothers in arms, deserving of honor and purpose. It was in the final years of military service that the first gates appeared, tearing open new worlds of calamity. Korea, still scarred from recent wars, became a front line in an unprecedented battle against the monstrous denizens flooding forth. Soldiers turned hunters, and battles became sieges fought in nightmare dungeons rather than open fields. Gun-Hee foresaw that humanity needed more than tactics, it needed unity. Appointed to lead the fledgling Hunter Association, Gun-Hee faced a daunting challenge: bind fractured factions together and prepare for a war humanity was unprepared to fight. The early days were consumed with endless conflict. Internal politics clashed as fiercely as monsters at the gates. Powerful guilds jostled for control, and distrust seeped like poison. Gun-Hee's leadership was a beacon of steady resolve. He brokered alliances etched in blood and empathy. When raids faltered and hunters fell, he was the voice reminding all of their shared humanity. His decisions sometimes harsh, always necessary. Each victory came with heavy costs. Friends, soldiers, and hunters alike perished, swallowed by monstrous darkness. Yet Gun-Hee held fast, guiding the association through layers of turmoil, manipulation, and the ever-looming threat of extinction. In private moments, he wrestled with doubt. Could one man carry the weight of a shattered world? Was his vision enough to stop the growing shadows? It was during one twilight meeting, beneath flickering fluorescent lights and maps sprawling across the war room table, that Gun-Hee first heard the whispers, a name that would change everything: Sung Jinwoo. The young hunter's rise was meteoric, defying all expectations and laws of power. Gun-Hee watched with cautious hope and guarded wariness, sensing that Jinwoo's path would intersect fatefully with his own. For the chairman, the true war was just beginning, the war to preserve not only survival but the soul of a humanity standing on the edge of oblivion. Leadership is a relentless battle fought not only against enemies outside, but the doubts and sacrifices within. Go Gun-Hee's journey as the Hunter Association's chairman would be forged through storms of politics, war, and heartbreak. Welcome to Chapter 3, The Trials of Leadership. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for immersive solo leveling sagas. The early light of dawn seeped through thick blinds, painting the Hunter Association's war room in muted grays and golds. Maps sprawled across steel tables, peppered with red markers tracing the chaos unfolding worldwide. Reports amassed like avalanches upon the chairman's desk, yet Go Gun-Hee remained unmoved in his chair, a stoic figure amidst the whirlwind. His role was more than strategic, it was sacrificial. Decisions that meant life, death, hope, or despair weighed heavily, gnawing at his resolve with every sleepless night. Unlike the hunters wading into the depths of dungeons full of monstrous threats, Go Gun-Hee battled a far more insidious enemy: political betrayal, fractured alliances, and the fragile unity of humankind's last hope. Despite his years of command, each crisis tested him anew. Rival guild leaders eyed him warily, sensing his pragmatism often masked an iron will unwilling to bend. Some whispered that his heart was swallowed by the weight of power, but those closest understood a man sacrificed for a vision, a future where hunters could fight not as fragmented factions, but as a united shield against darkness. The Hunter Association wasn't just an organization, it was a faltering beacon. New hunters flooded in, eager yet untested. The old guard clung to outdated beliefs, resisting change. Meanwhile, the monster threat evolved, growing more cunning, devastating, and mysterious. One night, as the world outside turned cold and quiet, Gun-Hee stood gazing at countless screens, drones flitting over battlefields, live feeds from dungeon raids, and encrypted channels whispering rumors of an emerging shadow power. In that moment, a wave of hope mingled with despair, the appearance of Sung Jinwoo, a hunter whose power was unlike any before. Gun-Hee's mind drifted back to his own past, the young soldier shaped by war, the man who bore each loss as a personal wound. He recalled the faces of the fallen, the battles that had tested every ounce of his leadership. The memories fortified him. Leadership meant sacrifice, but also responsibility, not only for success but for failure. Weeks later, a contentious meeting erupted within the association's highest council. Voices clashed like thunder, some demanding aggressive expansion, others caution and consolidation. Gun-Hee's voice rose with firm calm. He argued for unity over pride and foresight over rash action, reminding all that the Shadow Monarch's rise was both a beacon and a warning. On the sidelines, political schemes brewed as rival factions maneuvered for influence. Gun-Hee navigated this treacherous waters with skill, yet every step risked splintering fragile alliances. His health waned from stress, and yet, moments of quiet courage emerged, like when he personally escorted injured hunters back from catastrophic raids or when he stood firm refusing offers that compromised hunter equity. Heavy burdens, relentless battles, and unwavering hope, the trials of leadership for Go Gun-Hee were unending. But within those trials, his legacy continued to shine, inspiring a generation of hunters and reminding the world that true power was earned through sacrifice and unbreakable will. The past holds secrets that shape the future. In the shadows of power, Go Gun-Hee confronts truths that threaten not just his leadership, but the world itself. Welcome to Chapter 4, The Burden of Secrets and Shadows. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for deep solo leveling chronicles. The Hunter Association's grand halls echoed with hushed whispers and nervous footsteps as Go Gun-Hee retreated into a dimly lit chamber far from the scrutinizing eyes of the council. His eyes, sharp but weary, scanned a tattered dossier, the weight of forbidden knowledge pressing like chains on his conscience. Years ago, secrets buried deep beneath dungeons and classified archives had revealed fragments of an old war, monarchs, rulers, and powers that transcended human understanding. Gun-Hee bore the heavy mantle of guarding this knowledge, knowing its revelation could unravel world order. He remembered the harsh loneliness that accompanied secrecy. A leader must carry burdens invisible to those he protected. The burden was not just strategy or politics, but the preservation of hope amid truths too dark to voice. Behind closed doors, Gun-Hee grappled with the paradox of power, how to harness forces beyond comprehension without letting them consume humanity. The emergence of Sung Jinwoo added another layer of complexity, his shadow abilities hinting at these terrifying unknowns. The dangers were clear. Knowledge corrupted. Allies could become enemies, and trust became a fragile illusion. Gun-Hee's decisions, guided by a priority to protect humanity, often meant sacrifice and hard choices. In private, he sought counsel from few trusted, silent nods from veterans who bore equally heavy scars. Each conversation edged closer to the precipice of revelation. As threats multiplied, dungeons growing unstable, gate activity unpredictably fluctuating, Gun-Hee understood the delicate thread holding reality together was thinning. Outside, hunters fought bravely, unaware of the cosmic stakes. Yet, every battle, every sacrifice, was part of a larger, darker story. In this crucible of secrecy and duty, Go Gun-Hee forged plans to prepare for a coming storm, one that would test all he had built and force him to confront the shadows he had kept locked away. When darkness rises, even the strongest must rally. Go Gun-Hee prepares the Hunter Association for a storm unseen, as alliances shatter and new threats awaken. Welcome to Chapter 5, The Gathering Storm. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for epic solo leveling sagas. The skies above Seoul churned with restless clouds, mirroring the turmoil within the walls of the Hunter Association headquarters. Go Gun-Hee stood at the center of the war room, eyes narrowed yet resolute as generals, guild masters, and strategists gathered around to face the inexorable tide. Whispers of gate surges echoed from every corner of the globe. The balance had been disrupted. Reports of unprecedented monster activity flooded communication lines, challenging every hunter's limits. Even the usually unflappable chairman's expression tightened with the weight of impending crisis. This was no ordinary campaign. The gates were evolving, monsters adapting, dungeons twisting into labyrinths of nightmare. Intelligence suggested forces far older and more sinister moving beneath the surface. Monarchs whispered in the dark. Gun-Hee's voice cut sharply through debate. Unified action, coordinated responses, and unyielding resolve were demanded of every faction. Yet beyond mere strategy, he knew the most crucial battle was the one fought within, convincing fractured alliance members to stand as one, setting aside pride and politics. Tensions surfaced quickly. Rivalries flared between guilds hungry for dominance, while government officials pushed for ruthless efficiency over hunter welfare. The pressure mounted like a gathering storm. Alone later, Gun-Hee reflected on his journey, how far he and the association had come since those early chaotic days. The memories of sacrifices made from jungles to dungeon caves flowed through him, a silent testament to the cost of resilience. Sung Jinwoo's meteoric rise remained a glimmer of hope amidst growing darkness. Yet even the Shadow Monarch's power was a wild card, his motives shrouded in shadow. Gun-Hee wrestled with the balance between trusting that power and fearing what such strength might unleash. The gathering storm was more than physical, it was existential. Would humanity endure the unraveling of their world? Could hunters, leaders, and legends unite when shadows deepened? But Go Gun-Hee would stand unshaken. For beyond battles and betrayals, his purpose burned clear: protect life, nurture hope, and rally the last defenders of mankind. He turned toward his team, voice low but ironclad. We prepare not for defeat, but for our finest hour. Leadership demands the heaviest price. For Go Gun-Hee, the sacrifices made beneath the burning dawn defined hope's fragile survival. Welcome to Chapter 6, The Price of Sacrifice. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for epic solo-leveling storytelling. The distant rumble of thunder rolled across Seoul as dawn filtered through rain-streaked windows of the chairman's residence. Go Gun-Hee sat alone, a glass of dark tea untouched beside him, eyes dulled by years of weary reflection but still burning with unbroken resolve. The quiet moments were rare but searingly sharp, the space where memories of those lost in battle cut deepest. Faces of comrades and hunters flashed in his mind, each a story of courage and heartbreak. The night before a decisive raid, Go Gun-Hee had stood silently overlooking a sea of gathered hunters. Young men and women, brimming with raw determination yet unaware of the horrors that awaited beyond the gate. The knowledge of sacrifices yet to come weighed heavily on his spirit. Calls from government officials, desperate for victories, collided with whispers from fractured guilds demanding more power and autonomy. Each demand pulled at the fragile threads holding the association together. When the raid began, chaos erupted. Battles raged in winding dungeons carved by ancient evils, where shadows twisted and monsters clawed relentlessly. Reports came flooding, heroes fallen, valiant lives lost amid blood-soaked stone. Behind the scenes, Go Gun-Hee coordinated reinforcements, negotiated escapes, and managed dwindling resources with unshakable precision. Yet, the true cost was measured not in statistics, but in the human toll. Letters from grieving families arrived, mothers, fathers, widows, silently beseeching answers. The chairman's heart broke anew each time, but his voice remained firm for the sake of the living. He recalled the final moments of a favored hunter, words of encouragement whispered in a brief lull before the fight turned hopeless, a smile exchanged through battered armor. They fought for home, for future, for hope itself. Sacrifice was the currency of survival, and Go Gun-Hee paid in full. His physical health waned, his spirit bore invisible scars. Yet he held to his conviction, the belief that every sacrifice paved the way for a world worth saving. Even as shadows threatened global collapse, visible cracks in alliances tested human endurance. Gun-Hee found himself forced to remove corrupt or broken leaders, decisions that bred resentment but preserved integrity. Through it all, he maintained a unique kindness, private moments of comfort for hunters burdened with grief, and insistence on honoring the fallen with dignity. As storm clouds gathered, Go Gun-Hee gazed once more toward the horizon where sun and shadow met. Strength would be demanded, sacrifices continued, but the future still belonged to those who dared stand. He whispered to the memories, to the boundless sky, "Rest now, your fight is not forgotten. The living carry your light. When shadows lengthen and hope wanes, resolve must shine brighter than ever." Go Gun-Hee leads humanity's last stand with unbreakable spirit and fierce determination. Welcome to Chapter 7, The Guardians, Resolve. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for the ultimate solo leveling saga. The world stood on the edge of ruin as the Hunter Association's halls thundered with urgent calls. Reports came in from every corner, gates flaring unchecked, monsters of untold nightmares spilling forth, and heroes pushed to the brink. The fight was no longer just for survival, it was for the soul of humanity itself. Go Gun-Hee moved through the war room like a colossus, a man whose every step carried the weight of generations. Years of battles, losses, and victories had sculpted his resolve into an ironclad promise: humanity would not fall quietly. Around him, commanders and strategists scrambled to coordinate defenses. The gigantic screens displayed live feeds of battlefields transformed into chaotic arenas where hunters faced abominations molded from darkness and fury. Cities were under siege, mountain strongholds ravaged. Gun-Hee's voice rang out, calm but resolute: "We are the shield. We hold the line, whatever the cost." The challenges were immense. Hunters exhausted beyond limit, dwindling resources, fractures between guilds threatened to unravel the fragile unity he had spent a lifetime building. Yet, the chairman's eyes never faltered. He knew that resolve was contagious. When leaders wavered, so did hope. When they stood firm, it inspired courage beyond measurable strength. Personal sacrifices echoed loudly in his mind, fallen friends whose memory fueled his undying determination. Each life lost was tragedy, but also a torch passed to those still standing. Among the storm, Gun-Hee sought moments to inspire, inspiring reinforcements with steady words, reassuring young hunters scared beyond measure, and reminding all that their fight was a beacon of humanity's resilience. Navigating through delicate political tensions, he called for unity over factionalism, knowing disunity could be their undoing. Many responded, but the strain showed. Furthermore, Gun-Hee recognized the changing nature of the threat. The monarch's arrival altered everything, cosmic forces bearing down on Earth in waves. His strategies evolved, incorporating intelligence from Sung Jinwoo and others wielding powers beyond reckoning. In one pivotal council meeting, Gun-Hee stood before the gathered leaders, his presence a force commanding attention. He spoke not just of tactical maneuvers, but of willpower and sacrifice, the intangible strength that defines true guardians. As dusk sank behind the city skyline, Go Gun-Hee looked toward the distant battlefields through rain-streaked glass. In those fiery horizons, he saw not just destruction but the unyielding spirit of humanity, the ultimate resolve to rise, to survive, to protect. This was the hour of guardians, and Go Gun-Hee would stand unyielding, a sentinel against the dark. As the world teeters on the brink, the final defenses muster with unyielding courage. Chairman Go Gun-Hee stands firm amidst chaos, the last bastion against oblivion. Welcome to Chapter 8, The Last Bastion. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for riveting solo leveling tales. The sky burned with ominous hues as dark fleets of monsters pierced the horizon, advancing relentlessly towards the last bastions of humanity. Within the fortified walls of the Hunter Association's Central Command, Go Gun-Hee orchestrated the desperate but determined efforts to stem the tide. Every inch of ground was contested, every life precious. The gates had become nightmares unleashed, a storm the world had never prepared for. Inside the command center, Gun-Hee's gaze was fixed upon the combat grids, Dozens of simultaneous battles, hunter squads clashing against overwhelming odds, strategies evolving in real time. No longer just a leader, Go Gun-Hee was the heart of a fragile hope, a bulwark of calm against encroaching darkness. His decisions now shaped not merely military outcomes but the survival of civilization itself. He walked through the war room with steady purpose, comforting commanders shaken by losses, coordinating reinforcements to critical fronts, and making agonizing calls that cost lives but held lines. Memories of fallen comrades mixed with sharp resolve, each sacrifice a searing reminder of war's price. Sung Jinwoo's shadow army fought fiercely, a beacon among the chaos. Gun-Hee recognized the significance, though wary of power so immense, yet hoped it would tip the balance back to humanity's favor. Guild conflicts paused as city defenses grew tight, rivalries arrested by the primal need to survive. Gun-Hee convened emergency meetings to adjust strategy, balancing offense and defense in staggering complexity. Though exhaustion threatened all, his presence ignited renewed focus, leaders and hunters drawing courage from his unwavering composure. Late at night, in silent moments, Gun-Hee walked the association's corridors alone, haunted by doubts but strengthened by conviction. For this was a war beyond swords and spells, it was a fight for soul and hope, with humanity's future hanging delicately. Hold firm, he whispered to the empty halls. This is our last bastion, and we will not fall. After the longest night comes the dawn, faint but unyielding. In the face of devastation, Go Gun-Hee finds the spark that could ignite humanity's salvation. Welcome to Chapter 9, The Dawn of Hope. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for a powerful solo leveling journey. The first pale light of dawn struggled to pierce the lingering darkness over Seoul. But within the Hunter Association's headquarters, a new energy coursed, a fragile yet growing hope sparked by the unexpected and remarkable. Go Gun-Hee stood before a wall of monitors, tracing the triumphant shadows surging through war-torn districts. Reports of hunters reclaiming lost ground, monsters diminishing in number, and gates stabilizing reached the war room like rays cutting through thick clouds. The battlefield, once an endless sea of despair, now rippled with the promise of victory. This was the dawn humanity had fought for, a chance to rise from the ashes not by chance, but by indomitable will and unity. Go Gun-Hee's mind traced back to the darkest days, the moments where defeat seemed inevitable. The crushing losses, the fractured alliances, the shadows growing ever longer. Yet even then, a flicker remained, an ember fueled by the courage of countless hunters, by the sacrifices he bore close to his heart. Among those shining lights, Sung Jinwoo's shadow army was at the center, an unprecedented force rallying humanity's defenders in a way the association could barely comprehend. Gun-Hee saw in Jinwoo not just raw power, but a symbol, raw, unpredictable, yet undeniably essential. His own role had evolved, from a commander to a guardian, from a caretaker to a beacon. He pushed for collaboration, innovation, and a shared purpose. Old rivalries melted as guilds came together under common banners, and new strategies merged ancient tactics with the promising unknown. Still, tension lingered beneath the surface. The cost of victory hung in silent requiem for those lost, for cities scarred and souls shaken. Gun-Hee carried these memories like armor beneath his calm exterior. He convened a historic summit, a gathering of all factions to declare a united front for rebuilding and defense. The event symbolized a turning point. Dialogue replaced discord, plans shifted from survival to restoration. As speeches ignited resolve, Gun-Hee reflected on his own journey, how far he had come from a determined soldier to the architect of hope. Outside, the sun rose steadily, its light caressing battered streets, promising renewal. It was the dawn of hope, but also the beginning of a new era, one that demanded vigilance, wisdom, and sacrifice. Go Gun-Hee turned to those around him with a rare, gentle smile. This is only the beginning. Together, we reclaim our world. In the warm glow of the renewed day, the Hunter Association's main hall buzzed with unprecedented energy. Delegates and leaders from erstwhile divided factions now sat side by side, their expressions a blend of hope, determination, and cautious optimism. History was being made here, not just of survival, but of collaboration forged through shared struggle. Go Gun-Hee observed quietly from the sidelines, his gaze both proud and burdened. The weight of years past, the bitter failures, the sacrifices made, and the unyielding fight through despair, etched upon his face. This moment marked the culmination of decades of relentless effort, a fleeting chance to steer humanity away from the brink. Though victory seemed to be within grasp, the chairman refused complacency. Sung Jinwoo's shadows lingered as both a protective force and a reminder of the dangers unlocked. Gun-Hee knew this dawn was but the beginning of a far more arduous journey, an era requiring vigilance, sacrifice, and an unbreakable will to hold fast to the gains hard won. Outside, survivors began returning to ravaged neighborhoods, clearing debris to rebuild homes and lives. Children tentatively stepped into broken streets, their laughter a healing balm. Yet, beneath these scenes of renewal lay scars, emotional and physical, that would take generations to heal. Gun-Hee took a solitary moment on the balcony overlooking the city awakening anew. The sky, streaked with amber and rose hues, symbolized more than daybreak, it was the emblem of humanity's indomitable spirit. He whispered a solemn vow, not just to the living, but to the memory of those who had fallen. We rise, because they stood. We prevail, because they believed. The chairman's mind flickered toward the challenges ahead, political fractures still simmering, threats lurking beyond the reopening gates, and the unknown cosmic forces casting their enigmatic gaze upon Earth. Yet, for this moment, there was hope, a fragile light against the vast darkness. Go Gun-Hee's leadership had turned tides, knitting disparate souls into a formidable shield. But the true test of that unity was yet to come. Even in the brightest dawn, darkness edges closer. Go Gun-Hee faces new threats lurking in the shadows, both seen and unseen. Welcome to Chapter 10, The Shadows Gather. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for the profound solo-leveling chronicles. The world had reclaimed a fragile peace, but beneath that veneer, darker forces whispered and shifted, unseen currents pulling the tides of fate toward unknown horizons. Go Gun-Hee stood once more within the war room, the weight of his years heavy upon him but his resolve sharper than ever. Reports had surfaced of new dungeon activity, unusual patterns, unexpected invasions linked with the rising monarch powers that threatened to overturn all that had been fought for. Within the Hunter Association, unease permeated ranks and politics alike. Some hunters whispered of betrayals, others of secret pacts and forbidden knowledge. The line between ally and adversary blurred as shadows grew long. Gun-Hee's strategic mind pieced together fragmented intelligence, cosmic entities stirring beyond realms, rulers weaving plans in the shadows, and the mysterious powers within Sung Jinwoo's shadows evolving unpredictably. Despite victories, the real battle was only beginning, a war fought not only on Earth and dungeon grounds but within hearts, minds, and the fabric between worlds. Responding to these ominous stirrings, Go Gun-Hee sought counsel with trusted veterans and wise elders, understanding that survival demanded foresight beyond immediate conflict. Political tensions escalated as factions jostled for preemptive advantage. Gun-Hee's leadership was tested anew, to mediate, unite, and prevent fractures that could doom humanity. His own health, increasingly fragile, became secondary to the clear imperative: stand as the unbreakable defense against unfolding chaos. Amid the growing storm, moments of reflection and private conversations underscored the human cost behind grand strategies: families torn, lives altered, and warriors haunted by choices made in shadows. Gun-Hee's gaze passed often to the silhouette of the looming dungeons on the horizon, monuments to both doom and hope. His vow endured: humanity would not falter, would not succumb to despair. The chairman's final words in a tense meeting reverberated through the hall. Prepare not only for battle, but for the unknown. Shadows gather, but so do we. In the darkest hour, a single light can guide millions. Go Gun-Hee stands as the unwavering beacon amid the storm. Welcome to Chapter 11, The Last Light. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for the unforgettable solo leveling saga. The earth seemed to hold its breath as the Hunter Association fortified its final bastions. Go Gun-Hee's broad shoulders bore the culmination of decades of leadership, sacrifice, and ceaseless struggle. The battles ahead would be unlike any fought before, ancient forces moving inexorably, monsters beyond imagination clawing at existence itself. The very air hung heavy with the scent of smoke and iron, the distant roars of conflict echoing through the concrete canyons of ravaged cities. Yet, inside the association's chambers, a resolute calm prevailed. Here, plans were forged, alliances renewed, and the last lines drawn. Gun-Hee's eyes scanned the war maps, illuminated by the flicker of monitors showing real-time engagements. Battles raged fiercely, heroes ascending from tragedy, shadows clashing with monarchs, and echoes of ancient power shaking foundations. The chairman's thoughts drifted to those who had fallen, their memories etched in every decision. Each name a prayer, each loss a reminder of the stakes. The price of hope was steep, yet it was the only price worth paying. Among the chaos, a fragile sense of unity endured. Hunters from rival guilds fought side by side, strategies meshed with precision born from desperation. The shadows cast by Sung Jinwoo grew ever more vital, a force harnessed not by fear, but by will. Despite the growing darkness, Go Gun-Hee remained the steadfast light, a living testament to unwavering resolve. His leadership inspired not only tactics but hearts, rekindling courage when it flickered, bolstering the worn and weary. As the night deepened, Gun-Hee reflected on the fragile balance between light and shadow, hope and despair. He knew the battle's end was near, but its outcome was not yet written. In a quiet moment, he whispered a vow to the fallen and the living alike: "Your light guides us through the dark. We will not falter." Leadership is immortalized not in power, but in the legacy it leaves behind. Go Gun-Hee's final chapter reveals the enduring mark of a guardian, a visionary, and a hero. Welcome to Chapter 12, Legacy. Like, share, and subscribe to Anime What If Saga for the definitive solo leveling narrative. The dawn had long passed, replaced by a day steeped in quiet reverence. The battlefields had fallen silent, the once chaotic cities now humming softly with cautious renewal. Yet, no silence could erase the echoes of sacrifice and victory etched into the fabric of history. Go Gun-Hee sat alone in his office, an elder now, his broad frame diminished but spirit undimmed. Before him lay relics of a lifetime, faded photographs, letters from fallen hunters, medals forged in distant wars, and the flickering images of shadows that had once danced alongside him. His thoughts drifted over the journey, a path riddled with sacrifice, struggle, and unshakable resolve. He had carried the burdens of leadership through humanity's darkest hours, always balancing hope against despair, power against responsibility. The world he had fought to protect was changing. A new generation of hunters rose, armed with shadows and courage, their eyes fixed on horizons beyond his imagining. Go Gun-Hee knew his time was nearing its close, but his legacy was not measured solely by the battles won or the lives saved, but by the strength he inspired in others, the unyielding spirit that would endure long after he was gone. In quiet moments, he recalled the boy named Sung Jinwoo, the shadow monarch whose destiny intertwined with humanity's fate. He saw in Jinwoo the promise of a future built on sacrifice, courage, and the relentless pursuit of light amid darkness. As he prepared to step back, to entrust the future to those who would carry the torch forward, Go Gun-Hee smiled gently, proud, hopeful, and at peace. Legacy was not the end. It was the beginning of all that would follow. Go Gun-Hee's story is one of relentless leadership, sacrifice, and unwavering hope amid humanity's darkest hour. From his humble beginnings shaped by war and hardship to his rise as chairman of the Hunter Association, Gun-Hee bore the colossal weight of humanity's defense against unimaginable threats. Throughout relentless battles, political turmoil, and cosmic mysteries, he remained a pillar of resolve, uniting fractured factions, guiding hunters through despair, and guarding secrets that could alter the course of the world. As dungeons ripped open realities and monarchs threatened extinction, Go Gun-Hee's strategic vision and compassion inspired hope and unity. Even when shadows gathered and sacrifices mounted, his conviction did not falter. He stood as humanity's last bastion, a guardian whose legacy endured beyond his years. His faith in the next generation, embodied by figures like Sung Jinwoo, symbolizes the dawn of new hope that emerges only after the longest night. Go Gun-Hee's journey underscores that true leadership is measured not by power alone, but by the strength to uphold hope when all seems lost. Thank you for journeying through the saga of Go Gun-Hee, the steadfast chairman whose sacrifices forged humanity's shining shield in the darkest times. His story reminds us that true strength lies in resilience, sacrifice, and leadership grounded in hope. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Solo Leveling's most pivotal characters, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more cinematic anime storytelling. Which character should we explore next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Until next time, keep the shadows at bay and the light alive.